We are culturally conditioned to celebrate the all-consuming passion of a cinematic romance. Two people meet, sparks fly, and they burn down their lives just to be together. We are taught to look at irrational, overwhelming desire and call it love. But what happens when the camera keeps rolling after the infatuation burns out and the illusion shatters? Bitter Moon, a 1992 film directed by Roman Polanski, is a psychological thriller disguised as a steamy love story. It systematically dismantles the fairy tale of blind obsession. It acts as a masterclass in control, narcissism, and cruelty, examining what happens when a relationship is built strictly on a toxic foundation. But hovering over this entire suffocating dynamic is a dark, biographical shadow. Polanski cast his own young wife in the lead role. This adds an incredibly uncomfortable layer to the entire viewing experience, forcing us to ask, is this just a psychological thriller, or was Roman Polanski using this film to confess something about his own notoriously dark history? To understand how a romance rots from the inside out, we need to look at how the trap is set. It starts with a couple looking for salvation, and it begins on the waters of the Mediterranean. The film opens on the ocean. A slow zoom back reveals we're watching the sparkling Mediterranean seas through a porthole. Vangelis scores the beautiful images with chords that refuse to settle, tension and beauty held in the same phrase. On board the ship are Nigel and Fiona, a British couple played by Hugh Grant and Kristin Scott Thomas. They're sailing to Istanbul, then flying on to Bombay, because they believe India holds something that's missing from their 7-year marriage. An Indian passenger, Mr. Singh, listens to their plans at dinner and dismisses them in one sentence. The karma nirvana syndrome, he calls it. India is flies, smells, and beggars, and the noisiest place on earth. His comments born from a lifetime in the country. Nigel and Fiona don't listen to him. They think their imagination supersedes his actual experience. Fiona goes to bed. Nigel goes to the bar. A young woman is dancing alone to the song Fever, the only person on the dance floor. His clumsy attempts at flirtation get dismissed with the worldliness of a woman who has seen every version of this approach. She understands Nigel completely, but he learns nothing about her at all. Out on the deck, a wheelchair-bound American named Oscar stops him with a warning. The dancer is a walking man-trap. He knows because he's her husband. Down in his cabin, Oscar begins the story of their marriage, and the story is told in installments across the voyage to a listener who is as eager as he is disgusted. The story begins in Paris. Oscar is a rich American living on a trust fund, free from the need to work. He's moved to Paris to become a novelist in the footsteps of Hemingway and Fitzgerald. After 8 years, he has 3 unpublished novels and a stack of rejection slips. It doesn't matter. The money keeps coming. Women come easily to a tall, rich American. He drifts through sidewalk cafes and passing affairs. Then, on the 96 bus, he sees Mimi. Mimi has no ticket for the bus, so Oscar surrenders his own and takes the ejection from the bus in her place. Only one thing separates Mimi from the endless women already passing through his life. The way they met, a chance encounter, the perfect meet-cute, the exact kind of scene he has tried and failed to write for 8 years. He can't put a story like that on the page, so when one happens to him in real life, he seizes it. He becomes obsessed. He sits at his computer trying to write about her, deletes the sentences, and watches the screen dissolve into his memory of the bus, while behind him, a half-naked woman he's just slept with is getting dressed. While on a date with yet another woman, Oscar finally sees her again. He is delighted to find that she remembers him. They make a date for the next night, dinner at a Thai restaurant. Notice the East appearing again, the same East Nigel and Fiona are sailing toward in search of their salvation, an idealized exotic land that promises enlightenment. The date runs on a wordless mimicry game. He gestures, she copies, down to the placement of a spoon on the plate and the sharing of a cigarette. It might seem like innocent flirtation, but underneath, this game rehearses the coming shape of the relationship. A night of wandering Paris ends at sunrise on a bench outside Notre Dame, where he warms her bare feet with his breath. At his apartment, she asks for hot chocolate while he makes his coffee. Their chosen beverages make the age difference even more apparent. After a single date, he begins to worship her before he's had a chance to actually get to know her as a human being. They shut themselves in the apartment for 3 days and live, he says, on love and stale croissant. She quits her job to stay by his side. The romance runs at a speed the film renders in extended, erotic scenes. But something darker gradually makes its way into these scenes of paradise. She shaves him with his straight razor, draws blood, and licks it from his face while the score turns ominous. Oscar's next installment of the tale begins with a confession. The seasons came and went, he says. Mimi's face still held 1,000 mysteries, her body 1,000 sweet promises. But lurking at the back of his mind was the fear that they'd already scaled the heights, that it would all be downhill from now on. This is only the second chapter of his own love story. He has moved from blinding certainty to anticipating the decline. The relationship was built on erotic discovery and on nothing else, so the only direction left to travel is deeper into lust. Oscar describes these adventures to Nigel as a baptism, his Nile, his Ganges, his fountain of youth. Nigel calls the stories obscene. Oscar answers with a question of his own. Have you ever truly idolized a woman? Nothing can be obscene in such a love. Idolizing a woman means loving the image you have made of her, which requires no knowledge of her life, her history, her needs. Oscar has never once paid attention to Mimi, to her youth, her situation, what leaving her job and giving up her dancing career costs her. She reads his manuscript and can only tell him she loves everything to do with him. She gives him a pure, starry-eyed devotion. He barely registers that the devotion even exists. They buy fetish gear and push further. The escalation ends in a scene both farcical and sad. A barnyard soundtrack, a pig mask, a whip, 2 people who can no longer stay in character. The game is up. When the bizarre role-play collapses mid-scene, Oscar tells her he doesn't believe in it anymore. The relationship rested on sex alone, so when that reaches its limit, nothing remains underneath. His voiceover reveals our credit was running out. We were headed for sexual bankruptcy. He describes their love in the vocabulary of economics. When lust is the only thing funding a relationship, the relationship is over once the account runs dry. Their decline turns violent. A trivial kitchen argument reaches the one forbidden subject, his failure as a writer, and ends with him striking her. She falls to the ground, unconscious. When she comes to, she's in a curious, childlike state, and he follows up his assault of her with a cruel reenactment of their first date. The same walk to the same bench outside Notre Dame, and then he ends the relationship. She asks what she did wrong. He answers, "You didn't do anything. You exist. That's all." But she comes back to him anyway and begs to stay on any terms. Oscar accepts because her surrender hands him a new form of entertainment. Make her life such a hell that even she would choose to leave. The campaign is systematic, open cheating, mockery of her cooking, her haircut, her skin, her looks, staged both in private and in front of party guests. The vibrant young dancer from the bus disappears. A hollowed woman in bad makeup and frumpy clothes takes her place. Then she tells him that she's pregnant. His answer reveals the depths of his narcissism. I'm pushing 40. I haven't even sold a single book. The world doesn't know I exist. His vulnerable young lover is carrying his child, and the only thing he can think about is his joke of a writing career and his petty desire for fame, as if one had to do with the other. He forces her to end it. Then he tricks her into boarding a plane to a faraway place by herself, in a scheme that is truly pathetic and loathsome. Rid of Mimi at last, Oscar throws himself into 2 years of debauchery. Bars, beds, strangers, but no writing. The spree ends when a car hits him and lands him in the hospital bed with a broken leg. And that's when Mimi walks back into Oscar's life. But although she brings him flowers, her return is anything but angelic. She pulls him down off the bed with such force that the fall paralyzes him from the waist down. She becomes his nurse, cook, and jailer. The care doubles as payback, injections into the same bruised spot with a used needle, turning his literary agent away on the phone. Bringing home a lover named Basil, Oscar forced to watch them dance slowly into the bedroom. For his birthday, she gives him a loaded gun. But between these cruelties, she takes him on picnics, dresses him well, wheels him through Paris in the sun. Eventually, they hold a small civil wedding. 2 sterile people, Mimi from an infection the operation left behind, and Oscar from the paralysis. Each has achieved a twisted promise of their original wish. Oscar wanted a life dramatic enough for a novel. He now lives at the center of a story darker than any Greek tragedy. Mimi wanted a husband, and now she has one, entirely under her control. By now, Oscar's story has consumed the entire voyage. Nigel has condemned every installment of it, but he keeps returning because beneath the disgust, he wants Mimi, a desire so obvious that everyone on the ship has noticed except him. Fiona tells Nigel she knows exactly what draws him to those afternoon storytelling sessions, and she warns him, anything you can do, I can do better. New Year's Eve arrives on the final night of the voyage. Nigel finally gets his dance alone with Mimi and confesses that he has fallen in love. She receives that confession with visible revulsion. She tells him that she's just a fantasy, an amusement on a boring voyage. When he protests that she is hurting him terribly, she answers with a question, "The way you're hurting your wife?" Nigel insists his wife knows nothing, but Fiona is watching them. She recovered from her seasickness and snuck into the party, looking luminous, drinking champagne with Oscar and taking in the pathetic display. Anything you can do, I can do better, she had told him. And so Mimi and Fiona dance to Roxy Music's Slave to Love, slow, close, flagrantly sexual, while Nigel is forced to watch from the sidelines. The 2 women leave the party together, while Nigel gets drunk and cries like a baby. When Nigel sobers up the next morning and finds his way to Oscar's cabin, Fiona and Mimi are asleep in each other's arms, with Oscar sitting beside the bed, watching. Nigel attacks Oscar in a jealous rage, but Oscar takes the birthday gun from his jacket, shoots Mimi where she sleeps, and speaks his last line. We were just too greedy. That was all. Nigel and Fiona have lived a miniature of Oscar and Mimi's story. The desire, the lust, the betrayal, the jealousy, the humiliation, and the revenge, compressed into one Mediterranean cruise, in a sealed world between ports. They experience where the dark road leads without paying the full price. But Oscar and Mimi paid in full. Greed is the only explanation Oscar offers. Oscar was greedy for a life he had not earned, for worship without the work of attention, for freedom and possession at the same time. Mimi grew greedy as well. She wanted Oscar punished, but she also wanted the husband he had refused to become, so she arranged a life that gave her both. On deck in the aftermath, Nigel and Fiona hold each other, shaken but intact. A small girl approaches them, Mr. Singh's daughter, sent by her father to wish them a happy new year. Days earlier, Mr. Singh told Fiona that children are a better form of marital therapy than any trip to India, and he closes the film by sending his daughter to the survivors with a blessing. The film carries a biographical shadow that's worth mentioning. Mimi is played by Emmanuelle Seigner, Polanski's wife, 33 years younger than her director. The story he chose to tell, a selfish, gifted man whose lust and narcissism overruns every limit and wrecks the woman who loves him, sits close to his own story. By his own account, he was unfaithful and cruel to Sharon Tate during her pregnancy, and lust carried past its limits later derailed his entire life. The film never confesses anything directly, but the parallels are there if you have eyes to see it. There's something ancient in the shape of this movie. The sea crossing, the maimed storyteller, the compelled listener. Polanski builds it like a parable, seals it inside a ship, and offers no easy resolution. It grips you the way Oscar's story gripped Nigel, irresistibly immersive, enticingly repulsive, and impossible to forget.